talk through today's top stories. Good morning to both
Morning.
of you. So, Nick, we were just talking about something there in the break, your radio show this morning.
Yes.
And an extraordinary interview that you had.
Yes.
Well, you explain.
Yeah, so this was Sergei Markov, who is a spokesperson for Vladimir Putin. He has appeared, I think, on a BBC show a couple of weeks ago, and well, can you call it an interview? What the Russians are actually, this is what he's saying, the Russians are liberating the Ukrainian people from a neo-Nazi gangster that they don't want. So then you point out, well, why then are they fighting? Why are grandmothers literally taking machine guns? No, that's all media lies. Why would all the ambassadors walk out when your foreign minister addressed a meeting in Geneva? They had another meeting to go to. Whatever you come up with, Holly, whatever you come up with, any journalistic line that either of you two would deploy, there is a rationale. It is a totally different universe.
Does
Quite
he
chilling.
believe it? Or is he spouting the rhetoric that's coming directly from Dr Strangelove in the Kremlin? So does he believe what he's saying?
Chillingly, I think he does. I think he does. But what's interesting is, and I think we're going to touch on this, the number of protests in Russia, in the towns and cities, is growing.
Is it?
Yes. They imprisoned 7-year-old children.
Yeah.
You probably saw that. I think we're going to talk about a grandmother as well. Now, that is... Bear in mind, if you're 40 or below in Russia, you'd have no memory of the old Soviet Union, 100 years old this year. So you can't quite work out why you are killing your brothers, as it were, the other side of... Why do we want to... I don't know. They say, I don't know what the Soviet Union was. I'm very happy where we are. We have things in the shops, we have mobile phones, we can listen to pop music. We like that. But as you call him, you've got someone in the Kremlin who thinks very differently.
Should we talk about Chelsea Football Club owner Roman Abramovich? So he's confirmed that he's planning to sell the club for an expected $3 billion. He's asked that any loans to be repaid, he said that he will not ask for those, and he said that net proceeds, we're quite unsure what that exactly means, of the sale will be donated to war victims. Again, we don't know which side of the war those victims are. It could be as much as £1 billion. Thoughts on this?
I think he had to do it anyway. I think there would have been such a movement against him, he had to sell it. Bear in mind, he bought it for £140 million 19 years ago. Its value now is, he's asked for $3 billion. That might be a little bit heavy. I think we're going to come to this. There is a suggestion that actually people such as him, who are close allies, their money, their assets should be being seized. So he may well have sold it before any government action went around. But if you're a Chelsea fan, it is a sad day because he achieved so much for the club on the sporting level.
Beverley, Keir Starmer questioned why Roman Abramovich has not faced UK sanctions over the invasion. Abramovich himself has denied his alleged closeness to Putin. What I did want to ask you was that Cabinet Minister Michael Gove drawing up plans to seize British property owned by Russian oligarchs with links to Putin without paying them compensation. So they actually just take in their stuff. Now, I was listening to the news this morning on the radio, and it was pointed out that legally this is really a rather difficult thing to do.
It is. Abramovich is a very public scalp, of course, and a lot of what's going on now is about the optics, actually, of how it appears not only to the British public, to the Russian public, but also to Putin. Now, none of this is new, and I know that we're talking here about the fact that this invasion did happen on a larger scale overnight, but we have to remember that the eastern parts of Ukraine have been involved in a conflict with Russia for 8 years, since Yanukovych left in a helicopter in the dead of night to go and be looked after by Putin, effectively to harbour with him, and they changed the regime. That section of the country has been at a sort of war already with Russia. There's been a huge amount of tension. So the British government have known, all of the NATO governments have known that this has been bubbling away for at least 8 years. So there is a little bit of hypocrisy here, of course, from the Conservatives, who have accepted large amounts of money, perhaps naively, knowing the tensions that were happening over in the East. And I feel slightly that the Abramovich action is a public statement. Now, Abramovich has made it very clear that he's not a fan of Putin. And he said that some of the funds, as you just mentioned, Holly, he said they will go to the Ukrainian victims of this war. Now, how quickly can you sell a football club? I don't know. There is apparently the richest man in Britain, somebody I'd never even heard of, somebody called Jim Ratcliffe, apparently is in the market to buy this. Is it the right thing to do? I'm not sure. Do they have to take measures against the Russians who have profited by being here?
Nick,
yes, they do.
Nick, you had a sort of look of incredulity there on your face for a moment.
I absolutely support what we're saying, because I think they can do more. If you look to Hamburg, the authorities there have seized an oligarch's yacht. It has been taken by authorities there. He's furious, he's instructing his lawyers, but they can do it. So I agree. I am surprised that the government hasn't moved quickly enough. As regards the donations, yes, Beverley's right. It puts them in a very, very difficult position, although they will say, and it's true, all the donations were made by people who live here, who are on the electoral register, but it still doesn't look good that Conservative parties have taken considerable Russian cash.
Yesterday, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall lit a candle and left floral tributes at the Ukrainian Catholic Church in London to show their support of Ukraine. Camilla was visibly tearful and comforted the UK ambassador to Ukraine's wife, telling her, "We're praying for you all." Charles gave a short speech praising the Ukrainians' bravery, saying, "Our thoughts and prayers, however inadequate they may be, are with you all at this most critical time." You don't normally hear the royals speaking out about such issues, do you, Beverley?
No, and this is what I was just saying then about how the messages which are being sent to Putin. It's about military might, the suggestion that we would hit back, or the Western Europe. I hope that does not happen. But it's also about marginalising him on the global scale. And the royal family, I guess, is part of that. I think the most potent, most meaningful section of what Prince Charles said, Holly, was when you said about however inadequate they may be in regards to his prayers and his thoughts, because I can guarantee that the Ukrainian people will say, well, thank you for your thoughts and prayers, but can you support us a little more, please? Thoughts and prayers are all well and good, but we need help on the ground. I'm not talking about troops, but we need humanitarian support here. We need to help the Ukrainian people to escape from that country via safe routes if possible. And if that means speeding up our visa process, then so be it. So I think it was lovely that they did this. It was great. It sends out a very powerful message. But will it have a lot of meaning for the people of Ukraine? I don't think so.
I wonder, the thing is, you have the people of Ukraine, and then, as we've talked about, you have Putin in the Kremlin, and whether or not he gives a damn about any of this, especially if people like the gentleman you had on your show this morning don't believe that any of this has happened, and that the entire world, well, most of the world, obviously, I think 35 countries abstained from that vote, but most of the world are opposed. And then you have this footage widely shared of a captured Russian soldier. We're not allowed to show it. Breaking down in tears as he speaks to his mother over the phone, claiming that he didn't know where he was being sent. Obviously, with things like this, you have to take everything with a pinch of salt, that in times of war, then facts get mixed up or facts get fed that may not necessarily be true. But it looked pretty genuine.
I buy that. I should tell you the Russian spokesman with whom I spoke, that actually for him is a Ukrainian soldier pretending to be yeah, there you go. No, I absolutely buy that. I think the soldier says that he thought he was going on a peacekeeping mission. You have another soldier crying. Poor blood. I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for anybody who gets killed. He just wants his mother to come and get him. You are dealing, as you hinted right at the start, you are dealing with an irrational, I think I'm going to say madman inside the Kremlin, who, it doesn't matter what, Prince Charles, the royal family, whatever family, group of politicians, he will plough his own course, and it's how he is to be stopped.
Did you ask him about the children being arrested?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And what
right.
did he say to
that? They were just briefly detained for their own safety.
What's the end game? What's the end game here, Nick?
I don't know. I really don't know. I will say this, I don't think the boys will be home by Christmas, to use an old World War I expression. I think we are going to be looking at weeks and months of Ukrainian resistance, and that, as Beverley was hinting, that will be ramped up, and that needs to be ramped up. And it's whether the message can get to Putin, and whether what's called an off-ramp, you'll hear this expression a lot, the off-ramp is a way that you get Putin a path that he can back down gracefully, and it's seen to achieve something. We have to build an off-ramp.
But a last word for you, Beverley, and whilst you have that last word, we're going to put the donation strap up here. 15 UK aid agencies, including the Red Cross, Oxfam, Save the Children, joining together to ask the public to donate. The charities say people urgently need food, water, shelter, medical care. So you go to dec.org.uk. You can call 0370 60 90 900. We'll leave that up as Beverley has the last word.
I think what we need to consider, as we're all asking this question, where does this end? I agree with Nick. There has to be a way out, that somehow Vladimir Putin can leave, not with his head held high, but with somehow feeling that he has some sort of victory. All the best negotiations, both sides walk away feeling like they have won in some way. And if one of the best Russian commentators that I've heard talking about this, and none of us are experts on this topic, we are all learning very quickly, has said that actually to give him to Crimea, to give him the Donbass, to give him those eastern regions, which is what he wanted, where there are some very lucrative ports, to cede those to him, and then know that we are going to have some sort of peacekeeping troops on the borders for possibly ever, until he is dethroned or, you know, meets the sticky end at some point. That, I think, is hopefully the best we can hope for. But there was, just to leave you with one more human story, if we have time, because ultimately, once he loses the support of the Russian people, that is when he's going to be weakened. And there was a very moving story of a grandmother who walked up, a Ukrainian grandmother, who walked up to a Russian soldier. It isn't this one, actually. This is, again, it's this phenomenal female, feminine power of nurturing, which is being set against these very masculine images, which is very powerful. But there was a grandmother who went to a Russian soldier, and she handed him some sunflower seeds, and she said, put these in your pocket so that when you die, some sunflowers may grow in your place. And it's these awful, moving human stories which will, we hope, move this forward.
All right, Beverley, thank you.
Thank you.